The problem that Americans have with immigrants. If you're going to come here legally or don't come here at all. Very simple, you guys. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about today is what is the problem right now in this country, the United States of America, with immigrants in this country is how you got here. Did you get here legally or you just hop in the border? Okay. We're going to talk about that today, you guys. So be sure to join in. I'm going to give it a couple minutes to see if anybody jumps in the conversation. So I want to address a couple things. There was a comment that somebody had made on a video that I did. I was talking about the 10 Commandments, and they said the 10 Commandments should be in the schools. And I said, why? Legit question. Well, if I have to explain it to you, then you're part of the problem. Okay, here's the thing, you guys. I don't think we realize where we're at in the world right now. We have to be able to give the reasons for why we think the way we do. Okay? Period. There is a lot of opposition out there right now to truth and reality. And if we can't communicate the reasons we have for things, guess what? You don't even have the motivation to defend it. And, we can't do something on our own. The United States was successful because they were united, not because, they were, just bickering and, undermining each other and all this kind of crap that we do today, especially online. People are very disrespectful online towards each other. And so, but I will say this, you need to be able to defend yourself. You need to be able to defend the reasons you have for the statements that you make online, period. Okay. It's part of being a grown-up. It's part of having an adult conversation. Okay. Like I said, there's a lot of opposition to truth and reality. There's a lot of opposition to having any type of morality in society, especially when it comes to having the 10 Commandments in schools. People are absolutely insane mad about it. So if you can't defend why that's a good thing, how in the heck are you going to influence other people? Because we need a majority of people to actually support that. Do we not? Or else what do we get? Groups wanting to do lawsuits and trying to kick that stuff out of the schools. So we have to be able to communicate why we think the way we do. So anyway, you guys, I want to just jump into this really quick. Good morning, Melinda, I think. Thank you for joining me this morning. I appreciate it. So there's been a lot of hype the last few days, probably the last weeks I've noticed on the internet with either celebrities or people in public office talking about, that's what it was. It was actually the mayor of the city of Jackson, Tennessee. And so it was him. It was a couple celebrities I've seen. And they're like, we have to not be hateful and disrespectful towards immigrants, people that are coming into this country and the contribution that they make. And I thought about it and I'm like, you know what? The issue is not immigrants. The issue is how they got here. There is millions of people in this country who are getting into this nation, doing it unlawfully, breaking the law. That is, I think, the problem that American citizens are having with it. I don't think anybody has an issue. Do we understand we're a nation of immigrants? Duh. But there's also laws that have been set because we have to protect our nation. Every nation has their own laws. You guys just can't travel to other countries if you want and just jump their border. Go ahead and try it. I wish every single person who talks about hating America would just go to another nation then. Go check it out. Go live somewhere else. And then you can humble yourself and make a better decision, right? But we have to protect the sovereignty of our country. There has to be rules, right? And there has to be laws. That's what they are. And it's just crazy that this whole situation, if people are upset about illegal immigration, they all of a sudden want to paint it. They call it racists or whatever. And that's a bunch of BS. I don't think that's the problem. So let's go ahead and talk about it. First of all, do you guys know what the word alien means? Okay, so number one, of another country. You can say illegal aliens because they're from another country. But here's another aspect of it. Okay, an unnaturalized foreign resident. So they come into the country and they have not acclimated to the nation. Okay, they still are operating from how they used to live in their country. They don't know anything about the country they're living in right now. And here's the really scary part. Not only do we have millions of people in this country who don't know how the system of the government works here, we also have a lot of Americans who don't know the same thing. And you guys, I've been guilty of it myself. Like, I've never read the Constitution. I'm in the process of learning about it. I finally know what the first article of the Constitution is about. Do you guys know? Seriously. If you don't know it, that's okay. But the problem is, if the ones who live here don't know it and can't defend it, how much more these other people that are coming into the nation, right? So, people who are coming into this country and who are unnaturalized, who are not adjusting themselves, right, to the nation, learning the laws and saying, you know what, we're going to live by what, the Constitution says, if you even know it these days. And like I said, there's no shame if you don't. The problem is if you see problems going on in your country and then you do absolutely nothing and don't teach yourself, that is a huge problem, because then we're going to lose what we have. And then where else are you going to go? Anyway, so foreign refers to difference of birth, alien to difference of allegiance. Isn't that interesting? So you can have aliens come over here. They're coming from another country, but they will continue to be an alien if they have an allegiance to another country. Did you know that there are people who live in this nation that are, I would say, native citizens of this nation, actual legit citizens, and people who've come over here who don't have allegiance to the United States? That's what an alien is as well. It's not just someone from another country. It's someone who has another allegiance to another country. I mean, think about that. Think about people that we know in public office who have allegiances to other countries, who care more about other nations than their own. Don't you think that's a little sick? I mean, what would you think about a person who has a family who is not feeding their family, not putting food on their table, but feeding a neighbor? You would be like, what the heck? Right? They've produced children and they don't take care of them, right? That's kind of what's happening in our country. We have a nation that we are responsible for, and the people who we have hired to govern it are not taking care of the people. Number one, they're spending all our money, right? I mean, what are we, $35 trillion in debt? Okay. And then they're giving our resources to other countries that want nothing to do with us, that are just using us, right? It's like the United States is just like a giant pimp or a giant hoe. They're not even a pimp, right? They're not even getting any benefits. They're just selling themselves to these other countries, and these other countries are benefiting from the resources that we have. Have you guys ever looked up how much revenue this country actually generates, or goods and services? What is it? The national GDP, gross domestic product. So let's look it up. I think last time it was like $23 trillion. Okay. America's GDP, that's gross domestic product, right? That's the amount of value of goods and services produced in the country. $28 trillion. Okay. Why do you think they can spend all our money? This is how they reason it. They say, you know what? America is the people who work in this country, the people who have businesses, the people who hire other people. Collectively, it's $28 billion or $28 trillion. That's how they justify. They're like, you know what? This economy is making so much money. We're just going to keep borrowing it. It's actually really sick what they're doing, like manipulating the hard work of the American people. But I digress. So alien, right? Difference of allegiance. So that's the difference, right? We've got people coming into this country illegally. They're breaking the law. They're immigrants because they're from another nation. And then we also have aliens in this country because they don't have allegiance to the United States. Their allegiance is still back to the country they came from. Some of them don't want anything to do with the United States. Some of them want to come out here, use what we have, and destroy what we have. They don't even know what we have in this country, right? And here's my biggest problem I have with it all. You know, who should we be holding responsible for these problems? Okay? Is it really the immigrants and the illegal immigrants? I'm going to say illegal, the people who are coming in here illegally. I have no problem with immigrants. I have a problem with how you got here illegally. But who is responsible for the border? The executive branch, the president of the United States. Do you know his job as executive is to execute the laws? His job is to make sure the laws are being followed. Is that currently happening right now? So my question is, guys, and we need to figure this out collectively, how are we going to hold the executive branch accountable for willingly and willfully breaking the laws of this country and allowing people to pour into the United States illegally? I'm wondering if there's got to be a provision in the Constitution. So people have to be accountable. Yes, Paul, I'm with you 100%. And here's the thing, though. This is why the founding fathers went through every channel possible, right? everything before they just went ahead and said, all right, we're done, right? They went through every channel possible. Do we know all the channels as American citizens of what we can do right now? Most of us, like I said, don't know. How many of you know what's the article of the Constitution? What's the first article about? Does anybody know? Okay. If we don't know that knowledge, we're ignorant, and we can't be ignorant anymore. We have to actually start knowing this. The first article of the Constitution has to do with the Congress. It's the limits and the rules for the representatives and the senators. Okay. Do you guys know what the second article is about? Put it in the comments. What's the article? The second article of the Constitution has to do with the president. It's what he can and cannot do. Okay. Those are the limits. The third article, do you guys know what that one is? It's pretty easy to remember. If you know the three branches of government, you can easily memorize the three articles of the Constitution. The third one has to do with the judicial branch, what they can and cannot do. Okay. We have to know these things inside out as American citizens so we can literally hold them accountable. What do we hold them accountable to? We have to hold them accountable to the law, right? There's a law that's written. I think it was John Adams, one of the presidents, said that America is a nation of laws, not men, right? That means that no matter who is in office, so let's just say whoever is president right now, we know who the president is. He is supposed to enforce the laws whether he likes them or not. There is immigration laws that are to be followed. And from the looks of it, as we can see, he is willfully disobeying those laws. What can Congress do to keep those checks and balances? There has to be a way to hold them accountable, holding them accountable by reminding them that there's laws that have to be followed, right? And this is why it's important that you guys ask these kinds of questions. Get a hold of your senators, and your representatives on the federal side, the ones who go to DC, okay? So you need to figure out who those are. Do you even know who your senators are and your representatives are for your area? My senators in my area is Bill Hagerty and Marsha Blackburn. Those are my two senators, U.S. federal government, okay? And then my representative, my federal rep is David Kustoff, okay? I've called their offices. I don't know any of them. Shame on me. I will learn them. Yes, learn them. This is why, knowing the articles, you guys, I have a group, and we are currently going through the Constitution. The class is called Constitution Alive, and it's going to teach you all this stuff. Everything that I'm explaining to you guys, I've learned from going through these classes because I got sick of not understanding these things. It's like, I love my country, but if I can't defend my country because I don't know the laws of my nation, then I'm just as guilty as anybody else not enforcing the law, right? The government is for us, but if we don't know it, we can't hold them accountable. It says from the consent of the governed, right? That's part of the Declaration. That's the philosophy. That's like the mindset that we have around it. Like, no, this is the foundation of the Constitution is the Declaration, right? And what it talks about in there. And if we don't know these things, consent of the governed, that's us. We're giving them consent. How are we going to hold them accountable if we don't know what their limits are and what our rights are, right? So it's important that we know these things. So anyway, a person, foreign birth not naturalized is an alien. So somebody can come over here, and if they don't acclimate to the laws of the United States and actually make themselves a part of it, they're still considered an alien. Anybody who has an allegiance in this country that has an allegiance to another country is an alien. Okay. Think about all the other people out there that have allegiances to Ukraine, right? And they are citizens of the United States. There are people sitting in office right now, and their allegiances to every other nation but this one. I'm pretty sure there's got to be some provisions, but we got to read the Constitution. Read the first article that has to do with Congress. And then not only that, there's resources out there to help you learn it and understand it. Also, a really cool thing I learned yesterday. Did you guys know that in Article 1, Section 5 of the Constitution has to do with Congress, right? They have to keep a journal of the laws that they're passing and the intent. So when the guy's standing up there talking about a law he wants to pass, they have to record his intentions for the law and the conversations that were going on around it so we could go back and actually understand the intent. That's crucial. How many times has the law been twisted? Oh, well, they didn't really know what it meant. Did you know that there is journals that can be accessed so we can understand who made the law, what was the intent behind it, and we can actually apply it to the original intent? That is crucial. I did not know that. Did you guys know that was in the Constitution? I had no idea. Yeah. This is why we have to know these things. This is why we got to study it. And then we can inform each other of these things. But that's crucial, right? That way we can't be manipulated by our ignorance anymore. Because a lot of people that are in these positions, even judges, they interpret the law, but sometimes they interpret it wrongly, right? They don't go back to the original intent. But there are documents out there that provide that information. And I guess if you guys get a copy of the Federalist Papers, which I don't have, which I plan on to get, if you get a copy of the Federalist Papers and then you have a copy of the Constitution, if you read those things, that also provides the original intent behind the Constitution, okay? And that's important to know, because if we don't know that, that's why people are getting manipulated, and that's exactly why we're in the crap state that we're in right now, okay? So it's important, you guys, invest in yourselves through learning this stuff. Okay, so allegiance to another country. What else did I want to talk to you guys about today? What is allegiance? Fidelity or an obligation of fidelity to government from a citizen to a superior or to a principal. Now, you might be thinking, wait a minute. So, like, who do we give our allegiance to? Well, let's go back to the Declaration of Independence. What does it say? Who are we to give our allegiances to? Right? When you read the Declaration, who do they acknowledge in there? Let me grab my copy really quick, you guys. You know, the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. You guys hear that word? Okay, so fidelity or obligation of fidelity to a government from a citizen to a superior or a principal. Okay, so who do you guys think our superior is? Ultimately, well, the founding fathers knew our superior was God himself. Why did they say that? They said God gave us our rights. Why is it important to know that? Because if you don't know who gave you your rights, then they can be easily taken away. Do you believe man gave you your rights that you have? Or did God? Now, some of you are like, separation of church and state. We're going to get into that. I'm going to do a completely different video on that, because that is the most misapplied line ever. And it's not, I'm going to tell you right now, that line, separation of church and state, is not in the Constitution, and it's not in the Declaration of Independence. Okay. We'll do another video on that. But what was I saying? Okay, government to a superior. Okay, the founding fathers really believed that God existed, and after this life, there was punishments and rewards. Why do you suppose that's important? Why do you suppose it's important to have people in public office who actually believe that after this life, there's punishment and reward? Why would that be important? Well, for them, it was accountability. Right? How does one continually make the right decision no matter what? Right? Knowing that, hey, someone's watching me. I'm accountable. Right? God exists. God gave you your rights. That's the thing, too. A lot of people have a really crappy view of God. Therefore, they're like, why to serve him? They're misunderstandings, but that's another thing, too. But it says, when in the course of human events becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. Okay, so let's break this down a little bit, right? Necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them, and assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station. Did you know that there are separate and equal laws apart from the laws that we have written? Do you know how many people actually want to get rid of the Constitution, which is really sick, by the way? Do you guys know that we just had Constitution Day? Do you know how old our Constitution is? It's 237 years old. It's the longest standing Constitution list of laws in the whole world, right? I think they said the longest standing one is 17 years. Okay? But what do you go back to? What do you fall back on? The separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them. There's natural laws. Okay? That's where the founding fathers derived the inalienable rights that mankind have, is studying natural law. Most people don't even have anything to do with nature anymore. How many of you actually sit outside and appreciate creation? Did you know if we actually studied, we would understand, right, the rights that we have? Some of the things that are natural to us, like defending ourselves. Animals defend themselves, right? There are things that happen in nature that will always happen because it's a natural law. And the founding fathers understood that. Okay. And end of nature's God. And the class that I've been going through, he was kind of breaking that down. He was saying, there's laws of nature and of nature's God. Laws of nature, there's things that happen in nature that are not necessarily good, right? Incest, all these kind of things that happen. Why did God give us laws as humans? Because we were not created to be like animals, right? We are different. And so God gave humankind laws so we would not be at the mercy of the laws of nature, right? Because some of the things that nature do is not good, right? And so it's important to make that distinction that we weren't created to be animals. God made us in his image, right? And let's talk about that, right? Let me bring this up really quick. If you guys ever hear like someone talk about a carnal Christian, oh, you're a carnal Christian. Do you know what carnal means? It just means lacking rational thinking. You're unintelligent. Animal, brutish, brute. You're like an animal, unlearned, morally depraved. You cannot distinguish between right and wrong, immature. Wow, isn't that interesting? Do you guys want to be that way? Do you want to be unlearned, morally depraved? You can't distinguish between good and evil. You can't distinguish between right and wrong. You're immature, right? You're not fit to govern at that point. Is somebody fit to govern if they lack rational thinking? Should they be in office? I mean, come on, we can name some people right now that are in office that lack rational thinking, and they're still there. It's crazy. Like I said, I'm sure there are some provisions in the Constitution that we can remove people from office who are incompetent, people who are breaking the laws. It's got to be there. Morally depraved, cannot distinguish between right and wrong. You guys, can you distinguish between right and wrong? Can you use your senses? God wants us to. Why? Because God created mankind to rule and subdue the earth. You can't do that if you can't reason, right? If you have undeveloped senses. It's crucial. So, what else do I want to share with you guys today? Let me see if there's anything else. Okay, we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal. Isn't that amazing that you're created equal? Everybody talks about equality. Duh, we're all human beings, right? We all have the same potentials. We all, in the same in that way. They want to create equality through everyone makes the same amount of money. Everybody lives in the same house. Everybody, drives the same car, if they even have one. Why do you think they want to increase like public transportation? They don't want you to be able to be independent, right? But their equality is everyone's the same house, same amount of money, same resources. That's not what God meant. That's not how it's supposed to be. You were created to rule and subdue, to where you get to decide what you want to do and what you want to create. You have life, liberty, and prosperity, right? What is it? Right of people. Okay, hold on. Yeah, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. You can't have that and live out those innate things that are in you when they are trying to make everything equal, right? How are they going to do that? Through taxation, which they're already doing anyway. It's crazy, right? It hasn't gotten like super bad, but the way that certain people want to push certain policies and agendas and tax to make everything equal, where do you think that's going to come from? It's going to come from the hardworking Americans who have their own businesses and people who work, that they're going to tax the hell out of your check. So dude over here can, have his place. These probably little 500 square foot huts they want people to live in, right? Anyway. All right. Let me see here. Where was I? We hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. What's unalienable mean? Impossible to take away. They're within you. They were created in you. Isn't that amazing that there was actually a group of human beings that understood that, wait, we have rights given to us by God that can never be taken away. Why would you not want to be on their side in that way? Seriously. There's a lot of garbage out there about the founding fathers and what they thought. Do your own research, right? Read books, you guys. Seriously, But it's amazing that by the grace of God, there was a group of people who actually believed in the authority that God gave mankind, and they were able to create documents like this and a government that we are enjoying still to this day. You know, is it corrupt right now? I believe it is. Is it following the laws right now? Nope. Is there things that us American citizens can do? Yes, as long as we educate ourselves to what those things are and go through the channels that are there and exhaust every resource possible. But you can't do it in ignorance, right? Because no matter what, even if you institute new government, what's the government going to look like, right? The problem is not the Constitution. The problem is a lack of people that have character and morality in office. If you were to, the problem is everybody that's in office right now, they all have to go. And then we have to have, who else is going to go in there though? That's the other question. If we're going to have people in office, who's going to go? How many of you are prepared to serve that way? Oh, you're like, oh, I can't do it. Who's going to do it? Right? So what can you do in the meantime? While you're learning these things, start making phone calls. Start talking to these people. Start having conversations because they're there now. And if you're not ready to do it, well, at least hold the ones accountable that are in office to the laws that you are learning about. So that way you can at least preserve it until you're ready or whoever God's going to use to put in those positions, right? So that's the other thing you got to think about. We don't have to change the Constitution. We just have to have people in there that are actually going to enforce it. And even the founding fathers said, the Constitution is just a piece of paper. He's like, it doesn't matter the paper. It's the people that are in there. And it's evident that we have people in there that are immoral and corrupt. And again, I think it was Andrew Garfield. He said, who's responsible for that? Citizens. They've allowed it to happen. How many of us have been actually, like, up until now, you know, maybe the last 4 or 5 years, actually involved in paying attention to what's going on? Most Americans haven't, right? Everything's been kind of cruising along. And now all of a sudden we're like, whoa, and that's good. You know what? No shame in that. We got to wake up at some point so we can actually start directing this thing in the direction that we would want it to go, because this is our country. This is our government. Why do you think we have private property rights, right? Second Amendment rights, defending ourselves, owning your own land, right? And that's the beauty of the republic. You know, I was looking up this morning, kind of like really trying to understand, right? Because we talk about democracy and republic, you know, and a republic all the time. And I'm like, really, what is the difference? And the only definition I found in my dictionary, a state in which the sovereignty resides in the people or a certain portion of the people. Now, I think that's where they twist it when they talk about a republic, when it says or resides in a certain portion of the people. No, I believe our republic that was established, sovereignty resides in the people, in individuals. It's not just these groups of people. It's not just some. It's not just a legislative branch. That legislative branch, that executive branch, that judicial branch, they are all accountable to the people. But if the people don't even know what their role is, if they don't know their rights, if they don't know the limits of the people they put in office, we're going to continue this thing. So, and that's the other thing we got to remember, guys. We can go ahead and institute new government, right? As it talks about. When it says, you know, we have the ability to do that. Let's move down here to the bottom. It says, prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established should not be changed for light and transient causes. All right. And accordingly, on the other side of that coin, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer, while evils are sufferable, than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they're accustomed. What is he saying? You can't just, oh, I don't like the way the government's going right now, so we're just going to rip it. It's light and transient causes. There has to be like legit reasons. Why do you think on the Declaration it gave all the reasons that they had as to why they were breaking off from England? Do you have the reasons why, right? That we would have to abolish the political bans, right? Or dissolve the political bans. Do you know the reasons to why we would need to do that? And then what is to be in place? And how are we going to keep it going? Does that make sense? This is not a problem with the law. At the end of the day, it's a heart problem with mankind, right? Their lack of accountability to God and realizing that, wow, you know what, God, you gave us our sovereignty. You gave us this nation. You gave us this earth, right? And so, you know, we gotta respect that. All wisdom and everything comes from God anyway. So if we don't have the right people, we're going to constantly repeat the cycle that we're trying to get out of. The issue is not the laws. The issue is not the Constitution. The issue are the people in office that are not enforcing what it says. I mean, and as I said, like it's happening right now. And that's the problem I have with the executive branch right now is they are willingly breaking the laws, allowing all of these people, all of these immigrants, and I'm going to say illegal immigrants, to come into this country. I'm pretty sure we can hold them accountable somehow. The Congress has the ability. The thing is I don't think we have enough people calling their reps on the federal side. You guys understand this, and I did not know this. Okay, I'm showing my ignorance here. I did not really realize, because people would say, "Oh yeah, call your reps," and you're like, "What do you mean?" Right? So I'm just going to make this simple because I had to figure this out in my mind. So each state has their own constitution. Each state has their own executive branch, legislative branch, and judicial branch, right? So your governor of your state is like your executive branch, okay? And then you have the Constitution, which is for all 50 states. You have all the ones that go to D.C., all your senators that work for U.S. congressmen. Those are the ones that go to D.C. that make the laws for the whole 50 states. Those are the ones that you guys need to get a hold of. Now, is it important for you to get a hold of your state ones as well? Yes, because why? Think about this. Those illegal immigrants, aliens, are coming into the United States, but the United States is a group of individual states. They're coming into your state. That is when you need to get a hold of your state representatives and your state senators for your area and say, what the hell are you going to do to enforce the laws to get these people out of the country that are illegally here? It's going to affect your state. It's going to affect your resources, right? Taking up all the housing, doing all these things. Americans are already struggling. So this is why you would have to call your state ones as well, because each state is supposed to be sovereign, okay? Each state has its own laws. If it's not in the Constitution, it's left to the states. And everyone always gets pissed at Trump for that, right? Oh, leave it to the states. That's the way it was designed, right? The whole abortion thing. And that's a whole nother conversation, right? Leave it to the states. He's saying it's not supposed to be a federal law to where it applies to all states. When Roe versus Wade got thrown out, all it said was, there's no more, this has to be for all 50 states. No, each state makes its own law. That's the sovereignty of each state, right? And that has to do also with the 10th Amendment as well, right? The state can make their own rules and laws. And so you got to figure out, how is your state senators and representatives handling this crisis in your own state? You have to be able to call them as well. You need to call the ones in DC because they're the ones who actually deal with the one who's in charge, right? The president of the United States is the head of the executive branch. His job is to enforce the laws that have been passed by Congress, the House of Representatives and the senators, okay? He is clearly, along with his cabinet, right? Do you guys know how many cabinet members there are? I think it's like 15, all right? And each secretary is his cabinet, and each secretary is in charge of a department, and there's like 15 departments in the United States, right? You need to call your federal reps, the ones that go to DC, and your senators, because they're the ones who have contact with the executive branch. You need to get a hold of your state senators and reps because they're the ones who are actually dealing with the problem, okay? Your individual state is being flooded by illegal immigrants and aliens. That's going to affect your community, as we're hearing about, right? Things that are happening in Colorado, things that are happening in Ohio that they're trying to shut down. The media is trying to keep all that quiet because they don't want us to actually know what's going on. I want you guys to actually, I was praying about this today. Why do the media companies stay, so big and victorious? Because they get a lot of money from the pharmaceutical business, right? That keeps them going. But if it didn't have an audience, they wouldn't be there. So, okay, so what if they have money? Stop watching mainstream media. Do you guys do we not already get enough information on social media as it is? You don't need to watch all these stupid news organizations. The only thing you should look for, truly, in my opinion, is the actual conversations that are having. You're going to have to probably you could even have basic local TV and find the ones that are streaming the hearings that are going on so you can listen to it yourself. The news company just tells you what they heard and their interpretation of it. If Americans got more disciplined about actually listening to the source, you would probably think much differently about the things that are happening versus hearing it from, these retards that are, so-called journalists, right? So start listening to the actual hearings that are going on if you can find them. When there's a State of the Union address, I don't want you to listen to the news and for them to tell you what they said. I want you to find the actual the address yourself and listen to it. Listen to the actual source. Listen to President Trump. Listen to Joe Biden. Listen to the people actually talking. Stop listening to the ones who are hired to talk for them. Does that make sense? That way you can actually make an educated decision because you're not relying on these people to tell you what it means. You guys, American people got to take their authority back. Did you guys check this out? You know what made the United States Americans different from England over here? So when we came over to this country, okay, we obviously, as you guys know, there was nothing here, right? I mean, obviously the Native Americans were here, but there was no real economy going on, okay? The Native Americans were living off the land. They had their own homes. They had their own things. But when we started settling over here, there was no farms. There was no food. There was no homes. They had to do that. They had to rough it, okay? And as a result of that, they had to learn things they didn't know. They had to learn how to garden. They had to learn how to build. They had to do those things. So the thing that made Americans was this. Because they believed in self-government and it came from God, they were very much prioritized on growing themselves individually, right? Growing in character and growing in their skills. Over in England, their biggest thing at colleges was, okay, what are the origins of life, right? Secrets of the universe, sort of those other ideas outside the box, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the thing that made Americans different was we're like, what's functional? What do I need to learn? Because I got to survive. And so our institutions that we established were completely different than what was going on over there because of the environment that we were in, right? They had to teach themselves the things they didn't know. England, where do you guys think slavery came from? Slavery was happening over there. They come over here because it's what they always saw, right? And so they come over here. They got to do things on their own. They got to build their own stuff. They got to plant their own food. And so they taught themselves those skills. And that's what made Americans Americans. They knew their sovereignty. Therefore, they knew they had to be moral. So they worked on themselves, personal development, and they grew their skills. Isn't that amazing? I wish Americans would get back to that today. Right? I wish you guys would get back to improving yourself, being a better human being, right? Growing in your character and growing in practical skills in your life. All right? Because those are really the only two things that you need. God created us to build and do. Okay? And if we don't have the skills, what happens? Now we're at the mercy of somebody else to do it for us. And that's where we're at right now, you guys. But anyway, I digress. I'm trying to think where I was right. Let me see here. Nigel. Yeah, it all come down to money. Yeah, that's a whole nother conversation, Nigel. But let me see. Where else? We were talking about the Declaration of Independence. Prudence indeed will dictate that governments long established. And then it says, this is interesting, right? And accordingly, all experience has shown that mankind are more disposed to suffer while evils are sufferable than to right themselves by abolishing the forms to which they are accustomed. Did you know that human beings are more accustomed to suffering and putting up with it than they are to actually abolishing it? And that's what made the Americans who started this nation so different. They're like, we're going to abolish the forms of evil that we're accustomed to because they were accustomed to all kinds of evil from where they came from over there. This is why you guys got to read history books, But it says, but when a long train of abuses and usurpations, what's usurpations? To seize and hold in possession by force without right, just to take or make use of without right. And that's what the kings were doing. They would give charters, right? Saying, okay, sure, we're going to give you permission to come over here and build. And then they would build and then the king would pull it and say, nope, not anymore. And they're like, what the hell? And then they would want to tax, but they weren't able to even pick who was going to be in government. They had no representation, right? And that's what they would say. Taxation without representation. They were not allowed to participate in that process, but they wanted to take their money. They're like, no, that's ridiculous. Anyway. But when a long train of abuses and usurpations, okay, seizing and taking hold of, pursuing invariably. So what's that mean? It says pursuing invariably the same object evinces a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. Okay, so pursuing invariably. What does that mean? Invariably just means on every occasion, always. So pursuing on every occasion the same object evinces. Evinces means to constitute outward evidence of. So it's constantly happening, and now there's outward evidence of it happening, right? Like you can see it happening. That's important. So pursuing invariably, pursuing on every occasion, the same object is it's outward evident, a design to reduce them under absolute despotism. It's physically present. You can see it to reduce them what? Under absolute despotism. What's despotism? Oppressive, absolute power and authority exerted by a government. I looked up tyranny this morning and it was interesting. Did you know the Greek definition of it, what it used to mean, is anyone who takes power unwillfully, even though if they're ruling ill or well. So if they absolutely take the power and they're ruling well, they're still considered a tyrant because they're doing it unlawfully. Isn't that interesting? We always think of tyranny like oppressive, but the Greeks saw it as anyone who takes your rights without written consent is a tyrant, even if they're doing it well, even if they're treating you nice. And that's the problem. Just because someone's being nice to you doesn't mean that they're doing you right. Okay? Was the serpent abusive towards Adam and Eve? Come on. He was like, man, you know what? That's not going to happen. God said you're going to be like him, knowing good from evil. It looked like he was on their side. Okay? Now the thing is how did this person who's making these decisions get the authority to do it? Is it written in the law? Or did they just go ahead and take it without written consent of the governed? Isn't that interesting? So tyranny is not just someone who's like harsh with you. It's also the ones who are treating you well, but have not been getting the written lawful consent to govern. Okay. So that's another side of the coin. Let me see here. It says, invents is a design to reduce them under absolute despotism, reducing you under absolute authority to a government instead of you having your inalienable rights. The government that was instituted was created to protect your inalienable rights given to you by God. That is why we created the government to begin with, to protect your rights that you have, right? Private property, defending yourself. That's why we have the Second Amendment. Your ability to, let me see if I can find my notes from yesterday. He was talking about the First Amendment. Let me see where my notebook is. I have quite a few, you guys. Oh, where'd it go? It's not up here right now. I think it fell down. Nope, maybe this is it. Hold on. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Free exercise thereof. Okay. Hold on. That was another thing. There's a lot of stuff I can share with you guys. Okay. Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Not witnessing against yourself. Okay. Maybe this. Okay. That was the Fifth Amendment. It was talking about, not witnessing against yourself, cannot be taken without compensation. That's what they're talking about. Like your private property and your stuff in the Fifth Amendment can't be taken without compensation. But he goes, the problem that we're having these days is the regulations that they make. So they're taking it and they're not compensating, but they're using regulation to take your private property, right? To take your land. He talked about he mentioned the Endangered Species Act, which I don't know anything about that, but I thought that was kind of interesting. He was using a story. There was this lady in Texas. She had this piece of land. It was worth over $1 million. But because of these certain Endangered Species Act, this regulation, her property was now going to be used to protect it. And they reduced her property amount down to $30,000. And it went from over $1 million to $30,000. That's her private property, right? But they're using these acts and these regulations. And so now they're devaluing private property and they're doing it using these regulations. Isn't that crazy? I thought that was interesting. Anyway. That's a whole nother conversation, but I can't remember I'll have to look that up, you guys. What I was saying about, our Bill of Rights and the rights given to us and how they were, the government is to enforce those. They were talking about the origins behind the Bill of Rights and kind of the thoughts behind that around the First Amendment. And it was very interesting, but I can't find the note on that right now. And I'll share it with you guys once I do. But let me see. We're talking about the Declaration. We're talking about, all the other crap that's going on right now. Okay, let me see here. And so once you guys, so he's saying that the Declaration says that once we see it's evidenced, right? Outward evidence of there being a oppressive absolute power and authority, right? Once there's outward evidence of that, it says it is our right, it is our duty to throw off such government and to provide new guards for their future security. So that's the issue, providing new guards for the future security. Who are we going to put in those places? Who are going to be the new guards? Is it going to be you? I mean, seriously. What about Paul? Paul, are you going to be a new guard in the for the country? This is what it comes down to. We can say all we want that things have to change. But if we're not willing to learn and actually step up into those positions, then we're at the mercy of what's in there right now. And that's why it's important for you guys to at least be in contact with who those people are, and you can hold them accountable because you're going to learn the law and then you can enforce the law. You can't enforce the law if you don't know the law, right? And so it's important. Here's the other thing I did not know. And then we'll change the page. Did you guys know that the legislative branch in the United States has the authority to abolish a court if it's corrupt, bad behavior, if it's not doing right? Did you know that? I was like, wow, that's interesting. How many of our congressmen, we talk about some of the courts out there because, they say that courts are lifetime appointed, but they're not. They have to be in there for good behavior. So if their behavior is not good, you can abolish their court. I think that's pretty awesome. So do we have enough people in Congress who have the balls to abolish certain courts that are corrupt? You guys, we worry about justice. That means we have to have good judges in there, right? And if we have bad judges, the Congress needs to use their authority they have to abolish the courts then, because that's in our Constitution. The Congress has the authority to abolish a court if it's corrupt like that. Bad behavior. Interesting, right? It's all in the first article of the Constitution. If we know these things, then we can defend, okay? So let's see here, you guys. I think I'm just going to stop right there. I think I've said enough today. I just wanted to share with you guys how important it is to know these things. And again, like I said, Americans' problem is not with immigrants. It's with how they got here. If they're getting here illegally, that's a problem. And I want everybody who has a constitution, read the first article. Help find out what can be done to hold the executive branch accountable. I'm pretty sure the Congress has authority to do that. All right. The executive branch is willfully breaking the law by allowing these people to come in here. Okay. And so, we got to figure out what our avenues are to hold people accountable. And I know that they're there. It's just that I don't know what they are. I contacted one of my senators yesterday from one of my state senators, and I was like, hey, what can be done? Like, I'm sure there's provisions. I'm going to read the first article of the Constitution and see if I can figure it out. And I'm just going to ask questions. I'm going to talk to the people that are in office right now and be like, hey, what can be done? So anyway, you guys, that is it. Like I said, you guys, I have a group. Okay. It's $10 a month. Why is it $10 a month? Because I have to make money to do this. I got stuff I have to pay you guys. And so it's helping me stay online, but you guys are going to have access to information that's going to help you understand your country so you can defend it. Right now we're going through Constitutional Live. It's a 6-week course. Tomorrow we're going over week 5, and then we'll have week 6. We went over biblical citizenship, which was 8 weeks, and we're going to be going through constitutional defense, and which is incredible. So you guys are going to have access to tons of different videos that are going to give you information you didn't have. I'm learning this stuff with you guys. I promise. I did not know anything. I didn't know any of the articles. I didn't even know what was in them until I started going through these classes. So, and I'm going through this process because I believe it's my duty as an American citizen to learn these things. I don't want to stand back and complain, but then not even have the tools to make any changes and not have the awareness, right, of the reality of these things. And so, I implore you guys, if you're an American citizen and you love this country, invest in yourself, take some courses, learn, study these things and use the resources that are out there. God has put incredible people in this country who are doing the dang work, dude. I mean, Rick Green from Patriot Academy, he's been busting his A, right? Teaching all these classes, him and his family, traveling the country, talking about these things and created these resources for us that we can use in our homes. You don't even have to go anywhere. You just have to use your computer for the good, right? Use it to actually give yourself information that's useful so you can use it and apply it, and you can actually change the trajectory of your country and even your state. I mean, at least if you're getting this information and you're making phone calls, at least you can sleep at night. What about the people out there that are doing absolutely nothing, that are complaining and, bitching and moaning, and then, don't do nothing? It's not going to work that way. So anyway, you guys, I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. If anybody wants to get a signed copy of my book, you guys, I've got, I think 14. I sold 3 the other day. I went and set up a table. It was like a 2-hour thing. And there was probably, I'm going to say 20 of us business owners. And, we got done 5 minutes before the meeting was over. So it got done like 7:55. And so nobody really stuck around long enough, obviously. But I was grateful that I sold at least 3 books there. And so if you guys want to get a copy of it, signed copy, as I was saying when I was there, I said, if we want people to go out and take action, they're not going to be able to do that if they don't have the type of, I guess you could say, how can I say this? God is the one who gives us the courage that we need to do the things that need to be done. And if you don't think that God can help you in your real life, if you don't think God is real and with you right now, if you haven't learned to draw upon his comfort, his strength, his resources, you're not going to have the strength that's needed to deal with the bigger shit that we're dealing with in the United States, right? We have to know that God's in our hearts, that he loves us, that he cares about us, that he's going to provide for us, that, all these things. We have to have those things solid within us. So when God heals our lives and he puts desires on our hearts and there's other things that we want to do, how we want to be involved, you know how to draw from that. That's what the founding fathers did. I mean, they prayed constantly. They were in touch with the Lord. Christians have to be that in touch with God in order to do the courageous things that need to be done. And that in these days, it's standing up for truth regardless, right? A lot of people don't do that because they're afraid. Well, if you dig in your relationship with God, God hasn't given you a spirit of fear. He'll deliver you from those fears. That way you can actually go out and do what you're created to do, roll and subdue the earth, and take your position on this earth. You have wisdom, you have insight, you have a purpose, you've got desires on your heart, things you want to accomplish and do. God put those in you for a reason, but you've got to know how to utilize those things within you. My book, Nuggets of Truth, Volume 1, will walk Christians through that process where they can get comfortable with God being in their hearts. Do you know how many Christians still condemn themselves for their lifestyle, even though the Lord's told them, didn't come to condemn you, but to save you? You've got to get out from underneath condemnation, shame, and blame in order to walk in the full authority that God has given you. Because if you're constantly expressing an opinion against yourself, you're not going to walk out there and say your opinion about things. You're not going to be bold and courageous about what you think about something because, you're always going to be worried about what other people think. You're always going to be underneath their judgment. Get out from underneath the judgment of man. Come underneath God, right? There's no judgment in him. He hasn't judged you yet. You know what a judgment means? It's a final conclusion. God has not made a final conclusion of you because you're not dead. Praise the Lord for that. So you have an opportunity to get out from underneath the conclusions that men have made of you, which are whatever you're living by. You guys, I used to live underneath the conclusions of other people, and that formed my conscience for a long time. I talk about all that in my book. You guys can get a signed copy of it. I know it'll help you, and it's already helped a lot of people. If you guys have read it, make sure you leave a review for me, okay? You guys will be able to help me out with that. Facebook will not monetize me because my language goes against their community standards. So I'm not monetized, even though I have, I had 10,000 followers on here. I've noticed I've lost followers, or I don't know what's happened. My reach has went down drastically over the last, couple months because I say things that they don't want me to say. Well, I don't really care because I'm not here to say what they want me to say. I'm here because I care about truth and reality. And I'm going to say things that are going to go against what they're saying is true. Well, I'm not here to kiss their butts. And so that's why I made my own book. That's why I made a podcast. That's why I created a group. So that way I can still make a living while I'm talking about things that are going on, right? But I'm not going to rely on freaking Facebook to monetize me to make money. They're not going to, but I mean, I'm grateful that I can be on the platform. I would not know anybody that joins me if I wasn't on here. So I'm grateful for it. But that's why I created my own stuff. And that's the other beauty of being in this country. You guys have the ability to create your own streams of income, to do your own thing. You're not at the mercy of somebody. That's what God has put things in our hearts. It's just a matter of uncovering those things. You know, you might have something in your heart you didn't even know because something you believe about God is keeping you from it. You might have a really good thing in there, but you're battling against all this other stuff. And so it's like, it's important to get in touch with God in the deepest reality of your heart, even if it's not good, to know that his grace is good enough for every area of your life so you can actually have the courage to go out there and be unafraid. So anyway, you guys, yeah, my posts get censored all the time. They took away all my notifications. Yeah, I know, you guys. It's incredible. There's over, like I said, almost 10,000 people on this page. And it's like, I reach maybe 4,000. If that's crazy. And so last summer, I was up at over 500,000. They knocked my butt down. Last summer, I was over 1 million minutes and people watching my videos. They knocked it all down. I don't pay for advertising, you guys. I don't run ads on here. I just share stuff, you know, and people share it or watch it. But I've heard people say, Ashley, I haven't seen you on here for months. I'm like, I post every day. So my followers aren't getting notified or they're, you know, censoring. You guys, that's a real thing. Like keeping people's stuff at the bottom of the feed, that's a real thing. They've done that with me. They literally, I told you guys, they took down my YouTube channel back in 2022. I had over 400 videos on there. But you know what? I was proud of myself because I only had 200 subscribers, right? That's not a lot. But the fact that they took my channel down means that I was actually standing for something. If somebody with 200 followers could be that much of a threat to them, praise the Lord for that. That just means I was doing my freaking job, right? It means I was doing my job. I couldn't believe that I was a target, right? I'm like, I only have 200 people on my YouTube channel, and I've been working on that for years. I have a YouTube channel now, but I don't invest in it. I have one because my grandmother does not have Facebook. And so if she ever wants to watch my videos, she can on my YouTube channel. Other than that, I don't care about YouTube. They totally screwed me, but it is what it is. But like I said, I'm not making money off of YouTube or social media at all on here. I make money from selling books, you guys, you know, sponsoring my podcast or joining my group. That's it. I've been doing this for almost 8 years, you guys. Long time. And, you know, but I have a desire to do it. Every time I thought that I was going to be done, like last summer or just this past summer, I was like, all right, you know what, Lord, I can't keep paying for this stuff. I don't have it in my budget to pay for the things I got to pay for every month. I was ready to shut it down. And then I had an idea to start a paid group. And guess what? There's people in there that are paying the $10 a month to keep me on there. And it's what I needed. So guess what? God still wants me on here. And so I'm just going to be here until he leads me in another direction. And so with the group, I'm just going to keep on doing it until, you know, something changes. I hope it grows though. I really would love to see that group grow because I would love to see people investing in themselves. I would really like to be able to have a website that's independent from social media, right? Where I can load my own videos on it. I can do my own thing. I could create like my own groups off of the social media platforms in case they really just start, you know, gutting everybody, so to speak. I would like to have my own thing online, my own online presence, but that's going to take a lot more money because websites are not cheap, you guys. I have a website I pay for every year that's $19 a month, but it doesn't have all the bells and whistles. I can't upload videos on it. I can't do all those other things. I would like to be able to one day, but, you know, we'll see what happens down the road. So right now I still have Facebook. I'm grateful for it. It gets me in front of some people out there, but you guys can help me out by just continuing. If you guys see any of my stuff at all, even if you don't like it, I don't care. Like it anyway. It'll keep the content in front of you. Follow the page. Share it. Share the podcast. Listen to the podcast, you guys. The podcast is not the same thing I do on here. There's almost 400 episodes on the podcast, completely different content. So you guys can go over there and support that. I post about that all the time. So there's a ton of stuff on here that I think will benefit you guys tremendously if you actually utilize it. But I need your guys' help in getting the word out there too. So be sure to share the stuff, leave reviews. If you have read my book, leave a review on Amazon. The book is on Amazon, so that helps it get in front of people. You guys can leave reviews on my actual page. There's been a lot of reviews on there. You know, some of them are good, some of them are bad. People who get pissed at me, basically. People who get mad at me and don't like what I have to say, they'll leave me a trash review. It is what it is. But if you guys, the legit followers, not people who saw one video or read one comment and made a massive conclusion on me, not those people. I'm talking about people who've been with me for like the whole time I've been on here. Like I'm talking the last few years. I need you guys to leave reviews on my Facebook page and actually, you know, tell the truth because some of these guys are full of it. But anyway, you guys, I hope you guys have an awesome rest of the weekend. I really do appreciate you guys and love you guys. And thank you for your support. Thank you for engaging in the conversation. I really appreciate it. And you guys, just don't lose heart. Just continue to dig in your relationship with God and continue just to learn and study and show yourself approved, not just in the word of God, but in the awesome government of the United States that he's given to us. And there's tons of resources out there to help us do it. And you guys, I've provided that for you as well. So anyway, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for listening. And I will be back next Friday.